Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's topic. We're about to take a really fascinating sociological and psychological journey to uncover exactly why we love the way we do. We so often think of love as this mystical, chaotic, uncontrollable force, but researchers have actually mapped out the hard science behind our connections. We're going to break down the actual data on human affection, starting from our deepest evolutionary needs and going all the way to the modern dating marketplace. Okay, let's just dive right into our roadmap. We'll be exploring 1. The human need for intimacy. 2. The evolution of marriage. 3. How gender shapes intimacy. 4. The science of love styles. 5. Navigating the dating marketplace. And finally, 6. Jealousy, breakups, and ghosting. I want you to keep this big question in the back of your mind as we go through this. Is love truly blind, just guided by destiny and pure chance? Or are our romantic lives actually a highly structured marketplace governed by bargaining, exchange, and social boundaries? It's kind of a provocative thought, right? And the science we're about to look at might completely challenge your assumptions. Let's start with Section 1, the human need for intimacy, why we crave connection. So, sociologist Abraham Maslow viewed intimacy as a fundamental human requirement, coming right after our basic physical safety. Researcher Misty K. Hook actually broke this need down into 4 distinct features: love and affection, personal validation, trust, and self-disclosure. Now, what's absolutely vital here is that true intimacy demands self-disclosure, and that means sharing not just the surface-level, day-to-day facts of your life, but your deeper feelings and vulnerabilities. Interestingly enough, the data shows that achieving this deep level of intimacy is actually way more crucial to overall relationship satisfaction than maintaining your independence or even achieving sexual harmony. Crazy, right? Moving on to Section 2, the evolution of marriage, from contract to companion. While we place a massive premium on romantic love today, the whole cultural foundation of marriage has shifted drastically. It wasn't always about finding your soulmate. Back in the 18th century, marriages were largely guided by practical considerations and heavy paternal control. It was literally about survival and economics. Then, by the 19th century, that direct parental involvement began to dissipate. But it was really in the early 20th century that the ideal of the companionate marriage emerged. Suddenly, Americans expected their spouses to be their absolute best friends, their confidants, and their romantic partners, all rolled into one. But hey, despite this newfound freedom to choose our best friend, love isn't entirely random. The sociological concept of homogamy proves that our social circles heavily dictate and limit who we fall for. We overwhelmingly tend to marry people who share our educational background, our socioeconomic status, and our core values. So while we might feel like love is this spontaneous lightning bolt out of nowhere, we're usually only struck by lightning within our own meticulously curated social fields. All right, Section 3, how gender shapes intimacy, the rules of attraction. When we zoom in from society down to the individual, we find deeply rooted gender socialization. Sociologist Francesca Canzian argues that our culture actually suffers from the feminization of love. Basically, we define love primarily through expressive displays, like talking about our feelings or constantly saying I love you. Meanwhile, men are often socialized to use instrumental displays, doing practical tasks or providing help to show they care. If we only judge love by spoken words, we risk making men's sincere, action-based intimacy completely invisible, leaving them looking inadequate simply because they're speaking a totally different emotional language. And this expressive versus instrumental divide starts incredibly early, bleeding right into our friendships. Research shows that from as early as age 6, females achieve intimacy through mutual self-disclosure, usually in one-on-one pairings or dyads. Males, on the other hand, bond primarily through group activities. Now, while this means male friendships might lack that deep verbal disclosure, it interestingly spares them from what we call co-rumination, which is the emotional fallout and anxiety that comes from endlessly overanalyzing personal problems together. Both styles have very distinct evolutionary and psychological functions. Next up is Section 4, the science of love styles, the frameworks of affection. What if I told you we could actually measure the chaotic feeling of love? Well, Sternberg's triangular love scale proposes that love is made of 3 building blocks: intimacy, which is warm bonding; passion, the romantic and sexual attraction; and commitment, the decision to maintain the love. Depending on exactly how you combine these 3 points of the triangle, you get 8 distinct types of love. For example, intimacy plus commitment gives you companionate love, which is what we often see in long-term marriages. If you manage to sustain all 3, intimacy, passion, and commitment, you achieve consummate love. That's the complete ideal package that most couples strive for. Now, what's really fascinating here is John Lee's categorization of love into 6 specific styles. We have Eros, which is highly passionate, Ludus, which treats love kind of like a game, Storge, a slow-burning friendship love, Mania, which is obsessive, Agape, entirely selfless, and Pragma, which is highly logical and practical. Here's the crucial takeaway for us. Researchers believe that for a relationship to survive long-term, partners usually need to share the exact same style and definition of love. An Eros partnered with a Pragma is going to experience a lot of very confusing miscommunications. Which brings us to Section 5, Navigating the Dating Marketplace, Swipes, Texts, and Halo Effects. Finding a partner whose love style matches yours today happens within a highly structured environment, driven by bargaining, exchange, and the halo effect. This is a mental shortcut where we unconsciously infer that just because someone is physically attractive, they must also be kinder, smarter, or more successful. It's an automatic bias that heavily drives our initial marketplace choices. We are essentially equating outward beauty with overall inner goodness before a single word is even spoken. I want to highlight this specific year for a second, 2013. According to sociologists, 2013 was the exact tipping point in human history for heterosexual couples. It was the year that technologically driven disintermediation occurred. In plain English, that was the year online dating officially surpassed meeting through friends as the primary way couples meet. We literally removed the social middleman and took the entire marketplace digital. And technology now deeply saturates modern romance across every single generation. Almost half of 18 to 29-year-olds have asked someone out via text, and it's highly prevalent in older demographics too. But this constant, frictionless access to the marketplace creates a massive psychological burden known as the paradox of choice. When you have thousands of potential partners available at the swipe of a finger, it becomes incredibly difficult to commit. Why? Because we are constantly wondering if a slightly better option is waiting just one more swipe away. So, we've talked about how we connect, how we measure love, and how we shop for partners. But what happens when the marketplace fails? What happens when that cost-benefit analysis just completely breaks down? That leads us to Section 6, Jealousy, Breakups, and Ghosting, when love fails. The deep vulnerability required for real intimacy inevitably leads to friction and insecurity. Even the green-eyed monster of jealousy has been scientifically categorized into 2 distinct types. Suspicious jealousy happens early in a relationship when there is no real evidence of betrayal, just your own internal insecurity. Reactive jealousy occurs when a partner actually reveals a real past or present involvement. Fascinatingly, studies show that men and women are triggered differently here. Men often experience deeper jealousy over a rival's status or resources, while women frequently feel more vulnerable to a physically attractive rival. When jealousy or incompatibility becomes just too much, the modern era has given us a uniquely painful exit strategy: ghosting. This is terminating a relationship by simply disappearing without a single word of explanation. But the psychology behind it is truly fascinating. Research links ghosting to people who embrace destiny beliefs rather than growth beliefs. If you believe a relationship is destined, meaning it's either perfectly meant to be or it isn't, you are much more likely to just vanish when things get hard, rather than putting in the growth and effort to actually communicate your way through a proper breakup. And this brings us to a surprisingly blunt quote from the sociological text, Most Passionate Affairs End Simply as People Find Someone They Love More. So the crucial point is how we process that pain. Sociologists note that how we attribute the blame for a breakup completely dictates how quickly we heal. If we blame personal flaws, thinking I just wasn't good enough, healing takes much, much longer. But if we use relational attributions, like saying we simply had incompatible love styles, we are far more likely to recover and improve our subsequent relationships. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to ponder. Does understanding the science of the dating marketplace change how you will spend your emotional currency? We've seen today that love isn't just magic. It's heavily influenced by our social circles, our gender socialization, our specific love styles, and the digital tools we use to bargain in the marketplace. I challenge you to take these sociological frameworks and view your own relationships through them. The next time you feel a spark, ask yourself, is it destiny or is it just the halo effect at work? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.